On today's episode, who could join Connor Bedard on the Blackhawks top line when they become contenders again?
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Quick reminder to hit that like button, comment down below, and subscribe to the Locked On Blackhawks YouTube channel. It's the best way for you to show some support. It's all 100% free, won't cost you anything, and helps me out tremendously as I'm currently on my climb to 2,000 subscribers. Last but certainly not least, got to let you all know today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. Go and sign up today by visiting FanDuel.com/lockedon to get daily boosts and bonuses all summer long. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Again, per usual, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. We got yet another fun little discussion to open up the show, to open things up on the show here today. Let's talk about who could potentially be joining Mr. Connor Bedard on the Blackhawks top line when they become contenders once again. And based on the moves that they made here this summer, Hawks fans, I don't quite think Kyle Davidson wanted to accelerate the rebuild, and I don't think he did that this summer, but it was very apparent that he understands. He's kind of starting to toy maybe with the frustrations of Blackhawks fans, considering how bad this team has been the last couple of years. It's natural for them to be in that time to take a leap forward. And I've said on the show for probably close to 2 years now, ever since Kyle Davidson really took over and got this ship on the right track, that 2025-2026 is really when I think the Blackhawks are going to be trending, are going to be getting themselves back into the mix. Based on the moves they made this year, I do expect them to be better. I don't think they're going to be a bottom 10 team in the NHL, although I said the same thing going into last season, but it's certainly a more competitive roster, much deeper, much more capable of contending on a night-to-night basis, right? They addressed the backup goaltender situation, brought in a couple of veterans on defense, made notable adds to the top six and the bottom six. I mean, knock on wood here, but there's no way this Blackhawks team is worse than what they put together last season. However, I still don't think it's going to be good enough ultimately to get them back in the Stanley Cup playoffs for the first time since the 2016-2017 season, in which they got bounced in 4 games by the Nashville Predators. But with that kind of mindset, let's talk about who Connor Bedard could be playing with for years to come on that top line for the Chicago Blackhawks, starting with the players that are already here on the professional scene in the Blackhawks organization. The man I'm starting with first is Philipp Kurashev. I think it's only right to start with Kurashev considering the year that he just had, along with Bedard on the top line, in which he tallied a career best 54 points, career highs all across the board, 18 goals, 36 assists in 75 games. I was really wanting to see him reach that 60-point plateau, and I really do think he would have hit that had he not been hurt to open up the season. But not only did he post those career highs, he was the man who really took advantage of his opportunity the most out of the Blackhawks this past year and was one of their shining stars in what otherwise was, a rather forgettable season. And he showed that really good chemistry with Bedard and showed us all, I think, an offensive side of him that we didn't really know that he still possessed. He showed us flashes, but the consistency that he developed this past season was rather remarkable. However, the issue is I still personally don't see Philipp Kurashev, and I think most folks agree with me on this matter, as a true top-line option for the Blackhawks when they want to be Stanley Cup contenders. Look, he might be a better offensive player than I ever imagined. I still don't think he's going to be a top-line guy capable of playing alongside Bedard when you want to go and win a Stanley Cup. And quite honestly, Kurashev's future role, I think is really fascinating. I'm actually going to be dedicating an entire episode to that sometime later on this month. But I really don't see Philipp Kurashev being a likely option here, but figured I'd show him the courtesy of starting with him, considering how strong this past season was. Another option potentially could be Taylor Hall, although he only played 10 games in his first year with the Blackhawks last year due to a torn ACL. Started off the year on the top line with Bedard. That's what he was brought in to do, to kind of guide him onto the scene as a former number 1 overall pick himself. But unfortunately, that didn't go to plan, and injuries have kind of banged up Hall the last couple of years. Although I will say the last time he was healthy, he tallied 61 points in 81 games. However, he is going to be turning 33 years old at the end of this year, and of course is on the final year of his current contract. Best case scenario, maybe he has a little bit of a resurrection here and performs magnificently, but that's going to be hard to do considering he's coming off of a torn ACL. Maybe things go exceedingly well and he signs a 1-year deal. However, considering his age, I don't think he's going to be a legitimate option for Bedard on that top line. Let's talk about a couple of guys that GM KD brought in this offseason. First, Teuvo Teravainen, who of course just netted a 3-by-$5.4 million deal with the Blackhawks to return to the team that drafted him in free agency, is going to be taking on a top 6 role in some capacity this upcoming season, possibly on the top line out of the gate. We'll see how it shakes out. But he just had 53 points, 25 goals, and 28 assists in 76 games last year for the Carolina Hurricanes, which, quite honestly, considering his production the first couple of years with that organization, it's been a little bit lackluster as of late for Teuvo. He also only had 37 points in 68 games during the 2022-2023 campaign, and in the COVID-shortened 2021 season, he only played in 21 games. So considering him a true top-line option at this stage, and he's also going to be turning 30 years old in September, I've pointed out that he hasn't historically been a very good playoff performer. I feel like he could be a top-line filler option for these 2 to 3 years while he's here, but I still don't quite see him as a long-term top line piece along with Connor Bedard, maybe just for the time being though, and that could be okay. And then Tyler Bertuzzi, who got 1 year longer from the Blackhawks in his free agent deal, 4 years at $5.5 million, which, I personally wasn't in love with him getting that extra year, but he's someone who's likely going to take on a top 6 role as well. And considering his size, his grit, the sandpaper, net front presence, physicality, maybe a little protection out there for Connor Bedard as well, I wouldn't be shocked to see Bertuzzi, Bedard, Kurashev as the top line day 1 of training camp when Luke Richardson rolls out the combinations for the first time. That wouldn't shock me whatsoever. And this past year, Bertuzzi, his lone season with the Toronto Maple Leafs, he tallied 43 points, 21 goals, and 22 assists in 80 games played, but it wasn't a much lesser role. He was a bottom 6 guy for Toronto for a majority of his time there, and the Hawks are really hoping that he's going to find his footing from his first couple of years with the Detroit Red Wings. His second year, he had 47 points, third year in the NHL, 48 points, and then a career-high 63 points. I want to say it was 4 years back now in which he tallied 30 goals. The Hawks are hoping he'll be able to return to being that guy now that he's going to get an extended role here, although he also is going to turn 30 this upcoming season in February. I do think his size and skill combination and all the things I just mentioned make him the most likely out of the bunch to potentially be a top line piece along with Connor Bedard, maybe for 4, 5, or 6 years. Maybe the Blackhawks giving him an extension if things go well. But still, just considering he's creeping into his 30s, and also it's a little bit of a gamble the Blackhawks are taking here that he is going to be able to return to the form that he found in Detroit, which makes you a little bit concerned. And again, that's kind of the concern I had about giving him a 4th year at $5.5 million. We'll see how it pans out. But ultimately, Blackhawks fans, what seems pretty apparent to me here is none of the players on the current roster feel like true, legitimate top line options, that I should say, along with Connor Bedard for years to come. It feels like it's a little bit capped considering their offensive abilities, and in a case like Kurashev or for Hall, Tavo, or Bertuzzi, their age. They're guys who are either into their 30s or going to be creeping into their 30s this upcoming season. So with that being the case, in just a moment, I'll dive into some of the prospects in the Blackhawks organization that I feel could be capable of playing along with Connor Bedard on the top line for years to come. But first, I got to talk to you all real quick about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the championship trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and to level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll always find what you're looking for. Plus, with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or else you'll get your money back. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. With all the parts you need at the prices you absolutely want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and to bring home that championship trophy. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. Again, that's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only and exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit is only available to U.S.-based customers. Segment 2, as I mentioned, it seems kind of apparent that the Blackhawks don't necessarily have a true top-line option of the future currently on their NHL roster. So I figured for segment 2, I dive into some of the prospects that I think could be capable of playing alongside Bedsy on that top line when the Blackhawks get back to being contenders here in hopefully the not so distant future. The one guy that I think stands out above the rest of them Blackhawks fans, and you've probably heard me say this multiple times over the last couple of years, because he's been one of, if not my favorite prospect in the organization since the Blackhawks have drafted him. But it's Frank the Tank Nazar, the 13th overall pick in the 2022 NHL draft, coming off an awesome year of college hockey with the University of Michigan. A big-time bounce-back season for Frank Nazar after he missed the majority of his freshman year due to a lower body injury. He returned, and the productivity, it was like it didn't skip a beat. Point-per-game player for that team to help get Michigan to the Frozen Four. And then, of course, after they were knocked out, Nazar signs his ELC, joins on with the Blackhawks. It's kind of been a common theme we've seen from them these last couple of years. Alex Vlasic, right? Wyatt Kaiser, Landon Slaggert. Frank Nazar was the latest to do so, got in 3 games of action, and he looked awesome. Not only did he score his first NHL goal, but the high-octane skating ability that he plays with, the offensive abilities, the speed, the high hockey IQ through transition. Like, it was impressive and notable right from the get-go. And I really feel like his game is going to complement Connor Bedard's perfectly. He's a very well-rounded offensive player. He can shoot the puck, he can pass it. And oh yeah, he is definitely a better defensive prospect than Connor Bedard is, while still being able to keep up, I believe, on the offensive side of things. So I really think, I know it might be tough for the Blackhawks and for Frank Nazar to move from the center position. And because he is so sound defensively and because of his speed and the impact he can make in all 3 zones, I do wonder if they're wary of moving him away from center. And ultimately they might not. But I really think out of all the prospects, the forward prospects the Blackhawks have in this organization, he's the one whose game I think matches up the best with Connor Bedard's. And hearing Hadi Kalakash from Locked On NHL Prospects come on the show and kind of reiterate those same things to me and all of you out there as well has only got me more and more excited for the potential combination of Bedsy and Frank the Tank for years and years to come. So out of all the prospect options, Frank is the one who makes the most sense to me, but there are a couple other names I'll throw out there. Oliver Moore, obviously he plays with a high speed and has a good offensive game as well. I don't know if it's as natural of an offensive game as Frank Nazar. However, Oliver Moore really found his footing late in his freshman campaign with Minnesota and kind of looked like a different player in the second half. And I'd be I'd be looking out if I were the other teams in the Big 12 next year, because Oliver Moore is going to be a man on a mission and has gotten even better over the summer. And it feels like he's finally putting his hands and his foot speed together. And that's a scary combination. So he could be an option. However, I think his defensive prowess, his high motor, his fire, his competitiveness, and his versatility, I really think if the Blackhawks are faced with a decision, who you only get one of these two guys to play center, Frank Nazar or Oliver Moore, it's Oliver Moore to me. I'm moving Frank Nazar to the wing before I'm moving Oliver Moore. I really don't think they want to move him out of the center of the ice with the way that he plays the game. Ryan Green is someone who I'm super high on, ranked in my top 10 Blackhawks prospects here in the summer of 2024. However, he's a natural center as well, and I do think he has good abilities to play center at the next level, and maybe even could be the third line center for the Blackhawks in the future. Another sleeper all throughout there, though, Hawks fans. Golly, I've been so bad at this lately. I don't know why I keep forgetting to do that when I come back from the ad read, folks. I apologize if that's been annoying you. I know it's not annoying eBay Motors, though, or any of the sponsors that I've been showing extra love to here. I apologize for that, everyone. But the sleeper prospect all throughout there is Roman Kanserov, man. 44th overall pick in the 2023 NHL draft. Just had a really splendid year over in the KHL to help his club win the Gagarin Cup. It wasn't the best regular season. He only had 15 points, 8 goals, and 7 assists in 53 games, but then flipped a completely different switch in the playoffs. Had 13 points, 4 goals, and 9 assists in only 23 games worth of action. So nearly matched his regular season production in less than half the games in the postseason, when obviously, all the fire rises, the competitiveness is at an absolute max. It was really impressive to see Roman Kanserov do that as a 19-year-old. Kid isn't going to be turning 20 until later on this fall in September, I believe. And another guy who can play with some pace, has really good offensive abilities, good playmaking as well. And one thing that impressed me was the way that, from the clips that I've seen, the way that he bounces off of contact for being an undersized guy. And he's only going to get stronger and put on more weight these next couple of years. Hopefully he'll come over to North America sooner rather than later, because the Blackhawks want to get their hands on him in order to have full control. And I think that would be big for Roman Kanserov sooner rather than later. I think he has top 6 upside, Blackhawks fans. I'll throw Nick Lardis out there as well. I think he's a guy who has a low floor but has a super high ceiling because of his goal scoring ability. If he hits, could look like a phenomenal 67th overall pick from the Blackhawks in the 2023 NHL draft. But those really are the prospects to me who could be top line options for Connor Bedard. The only true one, though, I feel like is Frank Nazar and maybe Roman Kanserov. And even if you put, those guys together, let's say the Blackhawks go with a Lardis, Bedard, Nazar top line. I mean, that's one small top line. Even if it's Kanserov, Bedard, and Nazar, Kanserov, Bedard, and Kershaw, whoever it may be, it's a very undersized trio for the Blackhawks. And that's why I mentioned, if things go well for Tyler Bertuzzi, like, that could be a very natural spot for him for the time being for the Blackhawks, and maybe a couple of years if he shines and takes full advantage of the opportunity. However, the biggest takeaway that I have from getting into this, Blackhawks fans, is that they're still kind of missing at least one piece of the puzzle on that top line along with Connor Bedard. And personally, that's kind of why I wanted them to go with Ivan Demidov with the 2nd overall pick. I thought it would have made a lot of sense. However, what I will say, and it's no surprise here, something I have mentioned on the show time and time again, the 2025 free agent class of forwards is absolutely unbelievable. And I didn't expect Kyle Davidson to go after any of the big dogs in this past free agency. Quite honestly, landing both Teuvo and Bertuzzi was one more move than I anticipated him doing. And I know they're wary about throwing out money until Bedard needs that next contract, which is going to come after the 2025-2026 season. So, of course, that'll be after the 2025 free agent class. However, I feel like this is a really good opportunity for the Blackhawks to go and get a true bona fide stud next to Connor Bedard. It's going to be hard for them to develop that here in this organization. I think that's something that they're going to have to go out and get since they didn't draft Ivan Demidov second. But fortunately, if Kyle Davidson does feel like spending some money next year, there's some rather good options. How about, can I offer you Leon Draisaitl? Ever heard of him? How about Mikko Rantanen? I think those two options, man, it's going to cost a lot and it's going to be a long-term deal. But boy, think about Leon Draisaitl next to Connor Bedard. Think about Mikko Rantanen next to Connor Bedard. Yeah, that is what we call a game changer. And you might have to spend some money in order to do that. That's the price of doing business. But those two guys, man, I'd be willing to risk it all over the others. Sidney Crosby, of course, will be on the market too. He's a little bit older, but still can provide you excellent play all over the ice. However, he is a center, and I do feel like the Blackhawks will probably want to go for a wing. Mitch Marner could be a guy who's in the conversation. Same with Brock Besser, assuming, again, all these guys wind up hitting the market. I don't think they all will, but there's a lot of names here. Brock Besser, Carter Verhaeghe, Brad Marchand will be a little bit older, so I don't know about that one. But Travis Konechny, Nikolai Ehlers, like there are some big name forwards that are going to be on the market. Not quite this time next summer, but rewind, 9 days this time next year. So it'll be fun to see if the Blackhawks are finally going to be showing out some big dough to get a true top line winger along with Connor Bedard. After breaking this all down, I feel like it's pretty apparent that's what they're going to have to do. Let me know if you feel the same way down below in the comment section, and go and throw me your Blackhawks top line of the future with Mr. Connor Bedard at center. But that's going to take care of my thoughts on the who are Connor Bedard's future line mates debate. Coming up in just a moment before I wrap things up on the show, I do still have to share my thoughts on the Blackhawks 2024-2025 schedule release. Real quick, though, I got to talk to you all about the fine folks over at FanDuel. You all know I love sports. I talk about them every single day, and I love them so much that I literally never want them to stop. But unfortunately, as the Stanley Cup playoffs have come to a close, the NBA championship has come and went. There are now fewer games, and the sports just aren't sportsing like I want them to. However, FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want, wherever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime that I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every single day, all summer long. And there are going to be an incredible couple of final games on Sunday. The Copa America and the Euros, the semifinals didn't disappoint in either tournament. You can ride with me. I'm taking England, bringing it back home. I feel like it's bound to finally happen. I'm going with England over Spain. I'm also going with Colombia. They're on this unbelievable unbeaten streak. I know Argentina, Lionel Messi, right? They just won the FIFA World Cup. I think it's Colombia's time. So I'm going with Colombia. I'm going with England. You can even parlay them together if you want at FanDuel. And make sure to go and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get daily boosts and bonuses all summer long. FanDuel, an official betting partner of Major League Baseball. Segment 3, one thing that I haven't brought up on the show yet, actually, I apologize real quick. I do want to remind you all to go and hit that like button, to comment down below. Comment as well who you think is the future line mate in the Blackhawks organization right here, right now with Mr. Connor Bedard. And also make sure to go and check out the new Locked On Sports today, because Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. I'm the absolute worst. But Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every single league. So please make sure to go and check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, and go and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Segment 3, as I was saying, one thing I haven't mentioned here on the show and kind of got lost in the craziness was the Blackhawks 2024-2025 schedule release that dropped on July 2nd. So obviously right after free agency, which was just a hectic day for the Blackhawks, making 8 signings, and then 4th of July weekend obviously followed that as well. But I didn't want to forget about it. I wanted to be sure to go through it all and share my reaction and the notable takeaways that I found when kind of diving through everything. The first thing that I noticed, though, undoubtedly was it's still a road trip for the Blackhawks to open up the year, which I don't know why this has become a thing, but us Blackhawks fans have just kind of become accustomed to it. However, it's not starting with opening night in Colorado for the Blackhawks to absolutely get shelled at Ball Arena. So that's kind of a win in and alone of itself. But first, though, I do want to say the preseason schedule to let you all know when Blackhawks hockey will not officially official, but kind of officially be back. The first game of action in the preseason, they return on Wednesday, September 25th. Go and mark your calendars. They'll be taking on the Detroit Red Wings. They also have preseason games on September 27th and 28th against the Blues, October 1st and 4th against the Minnesota Wild, and one more time against the Blues to wrap up the preseason on October 5th. And then the fun begins. The Blackhawks open up the regular season with, like I said, another road trip, but it's not the absolute gauntlet that we've seen the last couple of years. Certainly not last year when they were parading Connor Bedard through all of the major cities, which, happened to include the best teams in the NHL for the most part. So that was a little bit unfortunate. But they're going to be opening things up this year on the road against the Utah Hockey Club. How about that? The Blackhawks will be the official opponent for the Utah Hockey Club's first ever game in their own building. The Blackhawks will be on the road there, so that'll be fun. And then the Blackhawks will continue their road trip. They'll have a back-to-back over the weekend against the Winnipeg Jets and the Edmonton Oilers, which will be a little bit tough north of the border, and then they round things out against the Calgary Flames. Before coming back home, they open up things at the United Center, their home opener, a fun one against Macklin Celebrini and the San Jose Sharks. It won't be Celebrini's first NHL game. That would have been super cool in and alone of itself, but cool to see those two number one overall picks in the last two drafts going head-to-head against one another. However, another quick turnaround for the Blackhawks. Following that, they have a West Coast road trip from October 26th through November 4th. So still not easy out of the gate for the Blackhawks, unfortunately. And then they return home back to the UC, and their first game of business is against Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat, and the Detroit Red Wings. So make sure to star that one November 6th at the UC. I did want to, and one thing I always talk about whenever I go through these schedule drops, it's the holidays. These are the things you got to note the most when the schedule drops come out. Unfortunately, it's not great for the Blackhawks once again, which I never love. They play Halloween night, first off, which is a Thursday, not the end of the world. 9:30, though. Central Time puck drop against the San Jose Sharks on the road in the Shark Tank. So that'll be fun. They're back in action Saturday afternoon. So Thursday's Halloween, Halloween weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday after that. Then they have a matinee game on 3 o'clock at 3 o'clock where, I'm sure half of the audience is going to be hungover. Everyone enjoy that one. They also play, this is my least favorite one of the group, and they've been doing this the last couple of years, and I absolutely despise it. They play the night before Thanksgiving, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. If you all remember correctly, they did this past year. They played the Columbus Blue Jackets, and that was the day all the Corey Perry craziness went down. I remember that specifically because they got absolutely shelled in Columbus, and I watched that game, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life right now? Anyways, they'll be having that game once again here this year. Obviously won't be playing on Thanksgiving. However, they will be playing at 1 o'clock at the United Center on Black Friday, which is one of my least favorite things in the world. All I want to do the day after Thanksgiving is lay around and do nothing. What I will say, though, is the Black Friday game last year against the Toronto Maple Leafs, it was the Kevin Korchinski overtime winner, the Jason Dickinson certified goal scorer breakthrough moment when he had a hat trick at the UC, which was absolute craziness. One of the best games of the entire year. So maybe the same thing will happen again this season. I'm keeping my fingers crossed on that one. The one break we did catch is with the Winter Classic because New Year's Day, it's always a little rocky for a guy in his 20s. I'm not going to lie to you. However, they moved the Winter Classic this year to December 31st, New Year's Day at 4 p.m. Central Time. That is lovely. And the Blackhawks have played on New Year's Eve the last handful of years, and it's usually like at like 7 to 9 o'clock if they're on the West Coast. It's like, come on, who wants to be watching hockey right now? So I am very thankful to the schedule makers that the Winter Classic is on New Year's Eve instead of New Year's Day this year. Frees up New Year's Day, which is always great. And then the Blackhawks will have their regular season wrapped up before Easter. So that takes care of all of the holidays. One other thing that was noteworthy is while the Blackhawks have a tough road trip out of the gate in the West Coast road trip in late October, early November, they get rebutted with a ton of home games later on in the year. 9 of the 16 games that they play in December will come at home. 9 of the 13 games that they play in January will come at the UC. So they're going to be around town the holiday season very often. And then 9 of 15 games that they play in March are also at the UC. They have 21 weekend games at the United Center this year as well, which is a breath of fresh air. They've been trying to get more weekend games out there to encourage and incentivize fans to come on down, because it's tough to go and travel down to the UC and watch a 7:40 puck drop when everyone's got work or school on the next day. So 6 Friday games this year, 5 on Saturday, and then 10 on Sunday, 7 matinee games between 1 to 3 p.m. Central Time. I think 6 of the 7 come on Sunday, if I am correct. And then to wrap things up in April, the Blackhawks end the season with their final home game on April 12th against the Winnipeg Jets, And then they'll go on the road north of the border to wrap things up with a back-to-back on the 14th against the Montreal Canadiens. And then the 15th, the final game of the year. Hopefully not. Hopefully the Blackhawks, maybe they find a way to surprise everyone and sneak away into the playoffs. That would be a welcome surprise and change of pace. But I would guess that's the final game of the season, April 15th against Ottawa. But that's going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Be sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free right now, wherever you may be listening to your podcast, and to go and hit that subscribe button, ring the bell to turn on those push notifications. That way, you'll get notified when the episode's uploaded each and every day. You can find my personal on X at Jack Bushman 2. As far as my strictly Blackhawks account, check out at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. So until the next episode, everyone, it's going to be a crossover coming out with the boys from Locked On Avs. I'm recording that here in a little bit. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your days. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.